Stugotz, who is lying here? Because we have another story involving quarterback and controversy, and it would appear that someone's not telling the truth. So you have Tony Busby, the attorney for Deshaun Watson, talking about...
The attorney for the women accusing Deshaun Watson.
Forgive me, thank you. Yes, for the victims, or the alleged victims on the Deshaun Watson story, quoted as saying the following: "Everyone was different, but there were some instances on a non-disclosure agreement." He's talking about the teams that were trying to trade for Deshaun Watson and contacting him or the people around him. I don't care if he gets traded or not. It's really not my thing. Obviously, there was a lot of effort on their part, meaning the Dolphins he's talking about here, to get the case settled so there could be a trade, apparently. I'm assuming at some point that will come about again. Time is on my side. I'm just going to continue to pursue the case, continue to do my due diligence on the case, and start preparing the case for hopefully a trial. The next significant event, I believe, will be February, when we have the opportunity to take Mr. Watson's deposition. He also said Miami or Houston or wherever he goes, it doesn't change our case. Bottom line was, apparently at some point the Dolphins wanted 22 settlements. I made it clear after talking to my clients that that wasn't going to happen, and then they lowered that number. I made that clear that that wasn't going to happen. Watson's team was trying to sell the Dolphins on some lower number, and I think that never came to pass. And then the question was asked, what about the non-disclosure agreements your clients were asked to sign? Quote, "I don't know if it came from Watson or if it came from the Dolphins. I don't know where it came from, but there was an insistence of a very, very robust non-disclosure agreement, and we pushed back on that very hard. For some of the women, that was the deal breaker. On other women, it was the compensation." Obviously, this is going to land on the Dolphins in a way that is ugly. The idea that you would want to protect your image and throw money and non-disclosure agreements on possible crimes.
We need a quarterback. Get this thing settled, right?
And get this thing settled in a way that the attorney for the victims is saying that they were very proactive about. And so Adam Beasley of the Pro Football Network is quoting Chris Grier, the general manager of the Dolphins, on some of this stuff. And the quotes are, "It's my job as GM to always investigate every avenue. We've done that from day one. There was no mandate from anyone. We're doing background work and investigating everything. Just because you do that doesn't mean you'll do a deal. This is a unique situation." On Busby's suggestion, the team wanted the accusers to sign an NDA. Absolutely ridiculous and categorically false. Categorically false. That pisses me off. Grier said that 90% of the stories that came out during this saga were false, and he added that he felt good about the team's communication with the organization. And then when a woman asked him the question of if they addressed the potential of a trade with women in the organization, Grier said, "We never got to a point where anything was close to happening, but said that they would have if they were close to something happening." So what happened here? What do you guys
Well, I don't believe him.
I don't believe Grier.
I don't believe him.
I can't believe I'm believing an attorney, but I do not believe Grier here.
I believe there are several reputable reporters that have been reporting for months about the Miami Dolphins' interests and how close they were. I just can't believe how badly they botched this, because there are certain things that the Miami Dolphins were surprised over in the very late stages of this proposed deal that should have been item number one before you throw your locker room into upheaval, before you mess with the confidence of your young quarterback, before you drag his name out in trade rumors and him worrying about his job security, before you do this to your head football coach and he has to field the questions. If you're Stephen Ross, the owner, driving this, you don't have to answer to the reporters. He's got to navigate that. There are so many obvious things that are number one with a bullet here that astonishingly came up very late in the stages. And I'd like to say I'm surprised, but it's the Dolphins. So I'm not.
The reporting on it was that the deal fell apart because the asking price fell apart as the Dolphins were asking about non-disclosure agreements and his part of the case being settled. But Mike, when you say the Dolphins botched this, is there a way to do this particular thing with this particular interest and not botch it?
Just wait.
Right. I think that's an excellent point, Dan, because probably not. But I would say their priorities in terms of discovery and finding out, just when you're acquiring a player, you want to see if that player is going to play for you, right? You do this with an injury, and you're certainly going to do this with legal matters.
But Mike, this
you
feels
know.
gross. I mean, if
it
this
all-
report
just
is
the whole-
true,
the whole
the
thing
whole thing,
feels
just,
gross.
It
just
all
acquiring
feels
someone
gross,
that's
but the
alleged of 22 different acts of sexual assault.
but the Dolphins trying to, according to this report, pressure an attorney and victims, alleged victims, to rush to some sort of settlement so they can get themselves a quarterback. It's disgusting.
Yeah, the rushing to the settlement thing, if true, that is really bad.
Well, and to beat the other 30 teams. I mean, that's essentially what this is about.
That's what the urgency is.
Can we get the resolution on this? Because if Deshaun Watson does settle and all this is clear, and then his future going forward, then you're going to have more teams that are involved in the trade negotiations at that point. One would presume, as long as he gets cleared. But the Dolphins are trying to get there before that is known by everyone, so their market is expanded. They're trying to squeeze the Texans for less here, which is even more gross.
But it's even more complicated because it doesn't necessarily just go away. Well, it stands to reason that it would go away if he settles a civil suit, but there are crimes. He may be
crimes,
indicted.
criminal. That's correct.
Yeah,
there's
the
a whole
FBI
nother
was
layer.
talking
Yes.
to him, so you don't know exactly how far this goes.
As I'm watching the reporting on this, Stugotz, the idea that you come out now after the trade deadline and he's going to spend the rest of the season there, and now you're indignant with how categorically false all this stuff is.
Right.
Like, it wasn't
They
categorically
had-
false all the other times that it had made an appearance here in the reporting before this.
And
Like,
it wouldn't have
No,
been
but
if you could have pressured
but if
them
it was-
to
There
get
was
the
a lot of
settlements.
denials, though, Dan. There was a lot of denials, and we were all like, bullshit. We know what you're doing out there. I don't really I don't know what the other move is here other than honesty, but the honesty, it buys them nothing. It buys them nothing. They'd rather have this conversation going on than us having the facts in hand of exactly how they went about doing this.
That
Because now it's all
small-
just conjecture. He said.
That small sliver of doubt you're saying is worth it.
David Sampson told us.
Yeah.
David
Benefit
Sampson
of the doubt.
told us that if a team was interested in actually trading for this kind of problem, it would have to, as a duty and a responsibility, reach out to all of the legal people to figure out, is he going to play or not? What can we do? If you're interested in taking whatever heat comes from your interest, you have to talk to all of these people, Stugotz, and see, how do we fix this?
You can recognize how serious the situation is and just let it play out.
But the problem is the initial
And if it
interest.
plays out with Deshaun- I know the initial interest,
It's
I
easy
know.
to say that now, Stugotz. We've
It
been
is.
talking about this for months. No,
Right.
that's not what was happening here. What was happening here is the Miami Dolphins were interested. And if you're interested, you have to pursue all of these legal angles. The problem is with their interests, Stugotz.
Right up to the grossest angle, though.
You say, look, I am not defending this. It's a terrible behavior. Never mind terrible look. Too much gets filed under terrible look. It's a terrible behavior, but it's also showing you how cutthroat these competitions are around the desperate who don't have a quarterback and need to win. Like, there's no one, I don't think that there's anyone who can or would defend the idea of the Dolphins checking in on the non-disclosure agreements to make sure that more information about their new quarterback doesn't get to us under any circumstance. I think everybody would agree that that's ugly. Even Chris Greer, who's saying, in the sternest terms possible, right? Because he didn't say categorically false about anything else.
He's saying it didn't happen.
He's saying that thing is so bad that I have to reject it as ridiculous and categorically false. But what I'm saying to you is, once you get to the point of not finding it ridiculous that you're interested in the first place, the next steps on that and what has to be done, not so ridiculous, Stugotz. You know, like once
you're there,
once you've
right.
said, I'm going to get this kind of dirty,
you got to follow through, I guess.
I'm not telling you got to follow through, but I'm saying once you've made the immoral decision, you should know something about this. You should know something about this.
I'm an expert.
You can't backtrack. You got to double down on if you're going to do the unseemly thing, do the unseemly thing. Don't try and do the unseemly thing and then make it look like it wasn't an unseemly thing.
Yeah, but on this road of unseemly things, I'd like to think that I would stop at the grossest thing on the road. Like I wouldn't go
But isn't
forward once I saw
isn't
it.
interest in Deshaun Watson, given what he's accused of, that? Like, aren't you already
I
there?
think trying to rush accusers to some sort of settlement so you can get a quarterback that's the grossest thing.
It's pretty gross.
I mean,
It's pretty indisputably gross. I need a quarterback. I've got a GM in trouble and my owner's old. How do I get these victims to stay silent with their victimhood? It's pretty disgusting.
Yeah. I think the NDA, it feels gross, but that's standard protocol. The rush to a settlement to me is what really sticks out.
Yes.
If that's true, that is
oof.
in a very ugly situation that makes us all squirm. That one in particular is super cringy.
Mike, the idea that victims would be subject to the NFL's trade deadline